name is Sabrina Sarl, and I am a creative business coach and consultant.
Well, Sabrina, let's just say, right, hypothetically, I've thrown down a portfolio on the table. What's the first thing when you open it that you're looking for?
That's a very good question. I think anything that is eye-catching, that feels different. I definitely love seeing a really unique style, and something that's not just copying the latest trend, because that can happen very easily. Um, Definitely a coherent style in terms of it all looking like it's being shot by the same person, or it has as you know, I call it a brand identity, right? I can understand exactly who this creative and who this artist is. When we touch upon kind of editorial and personal work, then yes, definitely bringing out your own style. And I would also say, fundamentally, your style, it should be unique to you. And I think of all of the photography greats, no matter who they've shot for, you can instantly tell it's their work by their style. And so, and that goes the same for whether you are a stylist, whether you're a hair, makeup, set designer. What makes you unique to you? What is your unique selling point? Because that's when you are your most authentic and truest self, that is going to come out in your work, and you're going to attract like-minded clients or collaborators. But yes, going back to kind of like the editorial personal work, definitely developing a style that is really clearly identifiable is key and important.
And I guess that also leads into the question, like, people want to know, what do they show a representative? What do they show a client?
So I always say portfolio should be a representation of yourself and the direction that you want to go in. Also be very bespoke for your clients as well. And, for instance, if you are pitching or meeting with a shoe wear brand, put your shoe portfolio together, put your footwear portfolio together, and perhaps leave out the cosmetics and what other stuff that you might shoot. Because think about it, shift perspectives. Okay, you've got a meeting with a shoe wear designer or a shoe wear brand. Put yourself in their shoes. What do you think they want to see, right? They're going to be commissioning a campaign, a lookbook. So they don't really care if you've shot beauty stuff, right? They want to see the shoes. They want to see how good do you make their shoes look, or how good you can make those shoes look. And so definitely tailoring your portfolio for each individual client is really useful. And I remember as an agent, I'd always ask clients, okay, what do you look for, or what shot is always, do you always try and find references of, or do you always try and shoot but you can never see? And like I use the example, beauty brands would always say it's really hard to find someone like smearing a product on well. And so having that information meant that I could then inform my artists to say, like, hey, if you're doing a beauty shoot, can we get a beautiful
smear,
a product smear? Because that's what clients are looking for. Or equally, and I think this sometimes can get lost. If you're working in fashion, let's not forget it's all about the clothes.
Yes.
And you can have the most amazing vision. If you're a photographer, you're going to be using this location, blah, blah, etc., etc. But let's not forget the clothes have to look amazing. And that also goes down for your hair makeup artist. It's very often they'll want to have a really big impact on the image, but actually it's the clothes which are the center point, and lean in and read the room and look at how everybody else is working the image and how they're making the image look. Because again, if you have big hair, big makeup, big clothes, big photographer, it can be
big.
too much. Yeah, if
Yeah.
not done correctly. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tim Walker does it really well, but not everybody is Tim Walker and can necessarily get that style. So so that's actually something to really think about, is the clothes have to look amazing.
So talking about creating your work, like realistically, how much imagery should you put in a portfolio? Like how much is too much when you're sending it out to clients and you don't want to bombard them with stuff?
That's a really good question. So I would tend to say, if you are making an initial approach, or even just like sending over a portfolio, perhaps maybe you're not like pitching for something specific, I would say just like very short portfolio. Honestly, you want to keep them wanting more, right? If you send them over your full portfolio, which I generally say should be around 20 to 30 pages, they've got nothing to come back to, right? So again, it goes back into that building a relationship. Give them a little bit. Because then also the other point of building relationship is like, find out what they want, find out what they're looking for, so that you can then tailor your portfolio specifically to them. So as a general rule of thumb, if I was an artist and I was going to meet a client or an agency for a publication for the first time, I would say something between 20 to 30 pages, and that's up to you how you lay that out, whether it is strictly one image a page, 2 images, maybe you want to do some, get really creative with the layout, 3, 4 images on a page, something that feels good to you and helps with the whole storytelling and the aesthetic of the portfolio.
And another question that I got asked was, yes, do you have different portfolios for different clients? And like you said, yes, you do. You make sure that each thing that you shot is dedicated to that client that you want to work with.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely be very targeted and very bespoke. And it's quite funny because sometimes people will say, oh, but that's going to take me forever. And I just think, but is it not worth putting in that time and effort? If you were pitching directly to a brand, make them feel like they are the only brand or they're the only client that you want to shoot for, by the fact that you've put together this bespoke portfolio for them.
And I guess the other question which leads into is like the narrative of presenting your images. Like how important is that sequencing, that storytelling, I guess?
Yeah, I think definitely think visually, think of the color, and you as an artist are going to be so much more into the storytelling than the viewer. So and I have seen it in times when an artist gets caught up so much, like, but it has to be this image and this image and this image because that's the order of the story. And it's like, I get that, but that's like only you know that.
Right.
So let's look at it from a more kind of visual point of view. But I would say a couple of images per shoot. If it's a fashion shoot, I would want to see each image is a different outfit or it's a different look if you're a hair and makeup artist. I don't know, if you're a photographer, then maybe, I don't know, 3 to 4 images for each story. But it really depends. I would think about, again, less is more, right? I would rather see a portfolio of 10 really strong images that, again, makes me want to see more.
Yeah.
And that feels coherent as well. I think that's something to touch upon in terms of everything should look like it's shot by the same person.
Yeah.
I've had it in the past where I've worked with photographers, and they've got about 7 different styles going on in their books. And from a client's point of view, that's a little scary because they don't know which version they're going to get when they turn up on set. So I would say definitely think, when you're putting a book together, think about that coherence. Think about how it can visually look like it's been shot by the same person, which when you are putting it together yourself and you're the artist and creative, it can be really hard because you become blind to your work. If you're a hairstylist or a makeup artist, that's a lot harder because obviously you're working with 700 different photographers. So a great way is to really make sure you're maximizing your network and building a core team of photographers that you like to work with, and working out what your style is as well. So for instance, if you are a hairstylist and you love braiding, make sure you are able to work with a mixture of teams where you can show off your braiding skills. Or if you're a makeup artist and you love big glamorous looks, work with teams that kind of give you that opportunity. It's not going to happen every single time. And I do hair and makeup almost they have to learn the element of kind of like diplomacy sometimes. And make sure that they're adding to the image and it's not all about them, unless it is like a beauty obviously there are instances when it's like we're going to do a full braid shoot and it's all about the hair, etc. But the most successful shoots and the shoots that you're gonna want to put in your book are when all the elements of the shoot come together and work really harmoniously.
If your goal is to get representation from agencies, knowing that agencies don't take on a lot of people, all the time, they have their specific few, what should you really be doing to be able to go and reach that goal and get representation as soon as possible, really?
So I think it really depends from agency to agency. Every agency works really differently. Some will be more commercial focused and will want to know what your clients are. Some will be more editorial, person, project, art-based focused and will want to know like what makes you tick as a creative and an artist. So I would always say meet with as many agents as possible, because the artist agent relationship is like the pinnacle of dating, really. You are going to be on the phone to your agent hopefully every day, so you need to make sure you get on with them and that your viewpoint and your attributes are aligned. And I would say there's no right or wrong answer. Just do it when you feel right. But equally, and this perhaps like leads into a bigger conversation, is having an agent definitely what you want or definitely what you need? Because there are a lot of successful artists that don't have an agent, and I don't think it's the be all or end all anymore. And I'm an advocate. If you are represented, amazing, great, because agents do great work, but equally it's not how it used to be when you couldn't
work without.
Yeah.
So when we think about what photographers and stylists, makeup artists should prioritize if their goal is to get an agency, again, you said it's very, very much about building that relationship, staying in contact, having a look at what's on the agency's books already and what kind of work they're looking for, but also bringing something unique to it. But we've also just mentioned that, having an agent isn't the be all and end all. You can get big clients without an agent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It doesn't have to be the priority anymore. I mean, for instance, look at Assisting Work. That's such a great platform for opportunities and to help you get into the industry and find other collaborators, right? Which perhaps, sometimes an agent would help connect the dots and pair people up. And I really do think that another way to get commercial work, and this is a trusted process that hasn't really changed, and that is by shooting editorial and also shooting personal work. And having editorial, whether that is for a commercial platform such as you've got your Vogue's, Harper's Bazaar, or something more independent, your self-service, Purple, Reedition, all of those platforms, all of those publications is another layer of credibility on your portfolio and your work, and is another way to get exposure instead of always posting on social media or your website. So for instance, I've worked in the past at a design agency, and actually when we would be looking for teams to commission, we would actually just like, let's look at the magazines, let's look at the latest issues, the autumn winter issues, and see like who's shooting what, to kind of help generate and spark inspiration. And equally as an agent, if I've been working with a photographer and I needed to find kind of stylist ideas, I'd look through the magazines. Okay, who are the stylists working for those magazines or shooting for those magazines?